Welcome to Hitting Winners, Tennis.com's new gambling show. I am Gil Gross. We have Cale Hammond, Alex Gruskin, Brett Connors. Cale is a former writer for Tennis.com. You can find picks now on CaleHammond.com. Cale, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Gil. How are you doing?
I am good. Alex Gruskin of Cracked Rackets. You're the editor-in-chief. I don't think you have edited anything in the last 2 years, but Alex, how are you?
It's Mr. President to you, but always a pleasure to see you, Gil, and a pleasure to get the chance to do something like this.
Brett Connors, longtime contributor at Tennis Channel and host of the Advantage Connors podcast. Brett, where are we reaching you right now in this nondescript white void?
In a hotel room, Indian Wells, California. Just down here doing some other work in the tennis realm, but happy to talk some betting and gambling with you guys tonight.
We're on site. We're getting the insights from the grounds. And Cale, I know you were there as well.
Where did you find the aquarium, Cale?
This family I'm staying with. I've stayed with them the last 4 years in Indian Wells. They're an Oklahoma family where I'm from. And they had an aquarium. So 10 minutes ago, I was like, yo, does that have a light? Because I could make it look like I'm hitting a lot of bets with this aquarium in the background.
Well, aquarium aside, the conditions at Indian Wells are very dry. I hope the fish are not, can't say the same in the tank. Cale, I want you to tell us a little bit about the conditions at Indian Wells. You have strong opinions, and from a betting perspective, you think there's a big edge to be had at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden on those purple and green hard courts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to hate this tournament. I hated it last year because I would make all these picks and all of my picks would be a set and a break up and they would lose. And it's because it's the slowest hard court that these players have ever played on. I am good buds with Dennis Kudla, who lost to Kohlschreiber today. I talked to him last year when he lost to Alejandro Tubilo in straight sets. And I go, what's the deal? What's up with these courts? And he goes, bro, it's a clay court out there. And it really is, especially at night when it gets cooled down. And we'll talk more about that later. But I'm telling you, this is the slowest hard court you're ever going to see. And that has a huge effect on the outcome of these matches because it's very tough to finish a match when you can't simply serve a couple aces and get it over with.
Has anyone seen a slower court, hard court, clay court, whatever, than Indian Wells? Would anybody push back on that?
I would say Nur Sultan in Kazakhstan, indoor court, but that thing, I mean, does the ball bounce? It just kind of gets stuck in the court. And you have all this time in the world. And so with that in mind, I would ask both you, Cale, and I know you're there as well, Brett. And so I'm actually going to ask you this first. I'm curious, Brett, if it's different in the spring than it is in the fall. Is that a factor you have to consider? Because obviously it got cool there when we played this event in October and we saw these physical matches, these windy matches. How different is it to play this in March?
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of difference, but I can tell you from my time down here this week, it cools off in the evening. I mean, it's gone from mid 70s during the day where it feels like a nice warm day to, it cools off into the high 50s. And it's windy. I was out driving around. I went and flew my drone at the wind turbines. I'm a dork with a drone. Love that stuff. But and I couldn't do it. I tried to go out there and it was kind of too much to do, or the shot would have been a little too shaky anyway. So it's hard to tell right now. I've only been down here a couple of days, but it's probably similar, I'd have to say.
Well, last year we had a crazy result on the men's side. There was not a top 20 seed in the semifinals. It was Basilashvili against Fritz. It was Nori Dimitrov, a Basilashvili-Nori final, and Nori is your champion. I mean, nobody had any of that. Is this a tournament where we should expect those wacky results? Or, I mean, Gruskin, you just mentioned the calendar spot, and that might have been a big part of why we saw what we saw last year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's worth pointing out right away, we now know no Novak Djokovic in the field, and inherently the lack of his presence leads to, a little bit more chaos, a little bit more anarchy in the draw. And certainly, I mean, you have familiar favorites, right? Rafael Nadal off to the best start of his career. He is the odds-on favorite right now, according to odds makers, according to, I believe, Tennis Abstract's forecast for the tournament as well. Justifiably so, but you look at a guy like Daniil Medvedev, who was up, 2-0 3-2 love 40. Are you really going to count him out? If it was a 2 out of 3 set match, he'd have won it. Yeah, he wasn't great at Indian Wells last year, but it's really hard to beat him on a hard court right now. The fact that Alex Vera is being allowed to play inherently means he has a chance to win this event. And let's not forget, it was a 7-6 in the third loss for him against Taylor Fritz when they played this tournament in the fall. Slot in Nadal into the Djokovic spot, and I do think you have a pretty definitive, clear-cut top 3, despite whatever's going on with Zverev. But I mean, you look at the odds right there. Tsitsipas playing solid tennis to start the year. Really, outside, again, who are his losses to? Only good players. FAA, same deal. He's been on fire. Andre Rublev goes semifinal loss to FAA, then back-to-back titles over his last 3 weeks of play. Alcaraz and Sinner look better every time you see them. There is no clear-cut favorite.
However, if this were a clay event, we'd see Daniil Medvedev much lower. We'd see Tsitsipas higher. We'd see some differences here. Rublev perhaps lower. I mean, Kale, are you looking at these odds and thinking, well, this is kind of hard court odds where they should be more like clay court odds based on what you've heard from your friend Dennis Kudla, and anyone who's watched Indian Wells over the years knows it's gritty and slow and high bouncing.
Yeah, I don't think it's like necessarily hard versus clay, but I think you got to look at what kind of hard court players do well on. And Daniil Medvedev, he's going to excel on an indoor quick hard court because he doesn't necessarily hit topspin on his shots. Out here, if you don't hit topspin on these courts, the ball just gets stuck in the sandpaper and sits up on a tee. You have to impart heavy topspin and rip the ball off the sides of the court if you're going to have success here. And looking at that list, obviously, I don't see who's going to beat Rafael Nadal, but the way Felix Auger-Aliassime's been playing as of late, when he's got all that time to wind up, and if he is able to just play within himself for the love of God, which he has done this year, he's going to be a really tough out, man, because he can serve through the court and his movement. He's going to be able to hit the heavy shots. He's going to hit some spectacular passing shots. If he's able to play within himself, I think we're going to be seeing semifinals, finals for Felix. I think he's going to be playing on the weekend for sure.
That is a potential final. They're on opposite sides of the draw. Gruskin, do you like that?
Well, I was talking to my friend Jimmy Connors. No, that's not who I was talking to. Sorry, it was too easy. But to you, Brett, I'm curious because you look at the difference between the hard court and the clay court and why I disagree with your premise. I accept the fact that you need to hit topspin to hit through this court. Where I disagree is fundamentally, to me, the biggest difference between the two surfaces for so many of these players comes down to movement, right? And Andre Rublev forehand is going to rip through any court. I don't care how.
How'd that work against Tommy Paul late night last year, my friend?
But that's last year.
I really went through the court when Tommy Paul beat Andre Rublev. Okay.
You're right, but how good has Tommy been since then? Tommy goes on to win his first ATP title. Tommy's now inside the ATP top 40. With context being key, that's not a bad loss. Now, again, I think physically for Rublev, given the 3 weeks he's just gone on and that he's had a week off to recuperate, I think from a confidence standpoint, he's a completely different player entering this event than he was entering that. When I look at a guy like a Felix, like an Andre Rublev, those guys with the overwhelming weapons, that's where I agree with you. But then I still think, and I'm curious, again, Brett, what you think about this, the difference for me is we're still on hard courts. And I think for so many of these guys, the movement that they possess, the difference in their skill level as movers on hard courts versus clay, like to me, that's still the biggest thing I look for.
Yeah, I agree. I think a little bit of what happened last year with the surprise finalist winner. I think a little bit of that was point of the year. You guys said it at the end of the season. A lot of people were almost winding down. They're not used to being in Indian Wells. Some people didn't even come. So I think it's going to be a little more what we're used to with some of the top seeds making it all the way through. I look at a guy like Alcaraz. I mean, you guys said that Medvedev doesn't like like the slower surfaces, even though this is hard court, if it does play as slow as we think, Alcaraz is on Med's side of the draw. So if he would get him and get lucky enough to get by him, that side of the draw is interesting because it also has Ruud on the bottom half, two guys who you got to like on a slow surface. Ruud started to prove last year in San Diego that he's got what it takes to win on hard courts. So I'm looking at those two guys as maybe a potential semifinal matchup that would be pretty entertaining to watch.
Not only is Alcaraz on Medvedev's half, he's in his section, he's in his eighth. But Brett, the only thing that some could accuse you of is a biased pick to gas up Alcaraz a couple of days after meeting the guy.
What is that outfit?
The all white? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, no, the all white. That's a bolt with the black sneakers.
Right. It looks like he came just straight from practice, but practice at Wimbledon, maybe. Not Indian Wells. Like, where's the colorful outfits we're used to out here in the desert? But yeah, I had a chance to meet him doing some drone work, chasing him around on the golf course. He was playing golf, actually, not tennis. Really nice kid, humble. Was nice enough to entertain a middle-aged guy with some pictures out there. And I whispered gently in his ear, "I'm taking you at 28-1 to win this week."
Well, a follow-up, did he show up to the course sleeveless and they had to say, "Sir, this is a golf course. You're in California. Collared shirt, please"?
No, he came out looking like that. He looked pretty good. One of the other players who was on the shoot the next day was Casper Ruud, and he showed up looking like a PGA Tour player. So it looks like Alcaraz still has a little bit of time to get that part of the game down, but he had a pretty smooth little swing. I was impressed.
Yeah. Can I just to piggyback off of the Alcaraz point? According, again, Tennis Abstract, the place to go for all of the relevant metrics available to the public. They have hold percentage, break percentage leaderboards, which, again, who's holding serve most frequently, who's breaking serve most frequently. You look right now, there are 9 players who rank top 20 on the men's side in both hold and break percentage. Alcaraz is one of those 9. I would also throw in there that Jannik Sinner is not only one of those 9 players, he's one of only 5 to rank in the top 15 in both categories. They check off all the boxes, right? Hit topspin, check. Hit the crap out of the ball, check. Young enough to have fresh legs at all points of this event, check. Like, waiting for a big result, check. I would totally agree with you, Brett. I think the 2 youngsters in particular, with no Djokovic in the field, like the next gen guys, Medvedev, Zverev, Tsitsipas, we were waiting for one of them to be the definitive number 1. That hasn't happened. These young guys are saying, all right, if you're not going to take it, I will. And I could see this Indian Wells being a place where they do that.
Medvedev just became number 1.
Sure.
We're excluding him from that. He's a year older, so I will give you that. He's 26 now, right? That kind of hits you in the face that Medvedev is now past his mid-20s. Let's go to fades and follows, okay? And we'll go to you first, Kale. On the men's side, are there players in particular who you're very excited to fade throughout the event? And on the contrary, players who you want to ride?
Yeah, as far as fades go on the men's side, I don't necessarily have too many of that. I am excited to fade Marie Buskova, as great as she has been recently. I am excited to fade her because this is the first time she's actually ever won a match at Indian Wells. She's through the qualies now, but prior to that, she had never won a match at Indian Wells. And when you watch her play, she squeaked through a couple matches in qualies, and you can see it in her face and in her body language that she does not like playing in these conditions because as phenomenal a player she is of slender build. She's not very strong. She relies on sort of finesse and quickness. And when it gets down to it, like at night here, you have to be able to inject some pace. And I don't think she's going to be able to do that. And given her results recently, she's going to be a favorite against most people that she plays. And I think she's going to go down early, whether it's the first or the second round. And it's not a fade, but a guy I'm excited to bet a couple times on the men's side is believe it or not, is Jaime Munar. This guy is in his element out here at Indian Wells. He's flying around the courts. He's catching things. When you see it in person, it's so much cooler to see because you can't tell on TV. But a sign of confidence when you watch someone in person is where they make contact with the ball. Jaime Munar is making contact with the ball so far out in front of his body. He's putting it exactly where he wants it. He's playing phenomenal defense. He's got the kick serve. And if his opponent has a weaker backhand, like we saw with Alex Vukic today, which was by far the play of the day on the men's side, that if he has a target to pepper, he's not going to miss, and he's going to pepper, and he's going to outlast his opponents. I think Jaime Munar might actually do some damage until he runs up against a guy who can get free points on his serve.
Quick roundtable on the pronunciation of Munar's first name, Gruskin.
I'll go homie too. I don't want to disagree.
Jaume.
Brett.
Jaume.
It goes a couple. It goes a couple different directions.
Yeah.
I go with Jaume. I think that's
probably
what I go.
right.
But okay, that's interesting. So Munar is a follow. Buskova is a fade. Any thoughts on that from Gruskin or Connors?
The hypocrisy. Kaleth, my friend, Kale Mundo. I'm going looking for the full name there. I'm sorry, Brian. Listen up. Why I disagree with you? Isn't Buskova? What does Munar do to rip through the court? Like, is the topspin Munar puts on his forehand enough to where I'm tailing him, or I'm on him, but I'm against Buskova? Like, I feel like the logic for those two things, it's kind of run counter to each other.
But Buskova doesn't hit topspin.
Okay, but comparatively to other pros, Munar doesn't hit as big of a ball as some of the guys who go
Munar hits extremely heavy topspin.
On the forehand,
I see what Gruskin is saying.
Like I'll give you that Munar can't crack an egg under pressure, but on these courts, you don't need to crack the egg. You need to roll the egg and have it bounce off the court.
And you think even on the backhand wing, his ball, because that's the side that sits short, and you feel like if you sit anything short on these courts in particular, you're in trouble. That's
and what he does on his backhand that's so effective is the height he gets over the net with his backhand.
Okay.
That is very tough to attack. We saw Andy Murray use that strategy when he beat Carlos Alcaraz last year. Andy Murray, he even talked about playing. The height was something he did. Jim Courier was calling this match, and he's like, look, the height that he's putting on it is not allowing Alcaraz to set up and tee off the way he wants. He's just going high through the middle, and that's actually a very effective play on these courts when you force someone to hit down and slap it, because crazy things can happen when you're doing that over and over again. So I think the height he puts on his backhand is actually more effective than it would seem.
So you're telling me he pulls off a righty game plan version of what Cam Norrie did last year? Because that is Norrie, right? The height over the net.
Oh God, no! I think he's going to lose in the fourth round. But I think he's absolutely.
No. Yeah, I'm saying that version of success, though. The way Norrie had success on these courts last year, that's how Munar does it.
I don't think he's going to have tremendous success, but I think he's going to pop a couple upsets.
Okay, I like it.
Okay, right. But he would definitely, he's not in the Basilashvili variety of guys who can get right through this slow court. He's more in the Norrie variety. I'm glad that we made peace on that. Gruskin, who are you fading? Who are you following this week at Indian Wells?
I'm taking all of the money I plan to bet on the women's event. I'm going to go to some sort of very nice chocolate shop, and I'm going to send my mom chocolate and flowers, because that is a far better expenditure than to try and figure out who's going to win on this women's side. I mean, no Krejcikova, no Barty. Naomi Osaka's unseeded, and yet is she the favorite? Maybe. I could make a legitimate case that the winner of the Iga Swiatek, Clara Topsin third round match, which is where they're projected to play, is the favorite through the rest of the tournament. And I don't think you can laugh me out of the room. Now, in terms of the players I am on, you talk about rolling through the court. You got to roll the egg. I'm going to steal that analogy so hard, Kale, because that's fantastic. Marketa Vondrousova, to me, is the epitome of all of those qualities. And you look for the Drews since the start of the Olympics last season. She has been lights out by any metric you want to turn to. She's one of, the 11 players on the women's side to rank top 20 in hold percentage and break percentage. You look for her beyond that, just her sheer record in matches played over the course of time since the start of that Olympic run. She's 29-10 overall. She's winning 75% of her matches. She's holding serve, breaking serve at a rate that only 13 other players or whatever can match. age 22, 23 this season. That's when we see nowadays the primes start to pop. I'm feeling a big year from Vondrousova, and I think this is the event where she gets some signature victories.
So we're very nice. We're following someone. Are we fading
Yeah.
anyone?
Federer, like a guess?
I don't
Maybe?
think
A bit?
I don't think he has a shot
Okay.
here.
I have a joke, but I'll save it for. It's not appropriate, so I'm gonna leave it aside. Yeah, there's some people I'm fading. I don't know if on the court, it's just too early. Like, how can you fade
Okay.
anyone this early in the season?
Well, based, you think they're overvalued at the moment, maybe.
Well,
but let's go to
I have a
Brett. Let's see
question.
what. Go ahead.
I just have a question. You said that you think Osaka might be the favorite. Do you just mean as far as a number, or do you actually think she might win? Because historically she doesn't like the slow stuff, but it's a hard court. So what do you think there?
The latter. I think she might win. Like, if you actually look at the losses, the past two big events, Anisimova was just lights out in Australia. Like, Osaka didn't play poorly. Anisimova just played extraordinarily well. Last year's U.S. Open, she should have won the match. She was up a set and a break on Leylah Fernandez. Like, she wins that match. Or I think it was Fernandez, if memory serves me correct. It's a completely different narrative and a completely different ball game coming out of New York. Like, yeah, she is played sparingly, but it's still a hard court. You still have to have the weapons, and she has the prime real estate in Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club.
Brett, who are you liking this week? Who are you fading?
It's tough. I mean, it's tough to go against Nadal. It's like what you guys are saying. If the courts are playing slow and you need topspin to win, then Nadal's got it. But I mean, it's a fun side. That whole side of the draw. I didn't realize he was on that same side I was talking about earlier with Alcaraz and Ruud. And so, I mean, I'd love to see Nick Kyrgios win 2 matches and see Ruud in the 3rd round. I think that would be fun. I'm going to back whoever loses the first set on the women's side. Yeah. And when they overreact to the odds, I'm going to jump on the underdog over and over and over again. And hopefully through the course of the 10, 12 days, I will come out on top. That's kind of like what I like to do.
If you don't mind, yeah, Brett, can you talk to me? Is live betting just the name of the game?
To me, it is. Like, that's why it's difficult for me to come on and talk to you guys about matches I like, things I like futures for sure I can talk. But as far as matches, I usually never bet a match before it starts. I feel like there's always an opportunity, even like little cheats that, you guys know about. But like, if, wait for the first game to happen. If you want if the server is a favorite, let him become more of a favorite, or vice versa. Let the dog become less. Or you can find places in the live to get a better number almost always, especially on the women's side where the swings are so drastic and the set really means nothing. Last week in Lyon, like there were multiple matches in a row, like every day of the week, where the person who loses the first set gets like 5 or 5.5 to 1, which is a complete overreaction just almost on any match on the WTA tour, just because it happens so often. And then, of course, they win the second set, they come back and win. So
hedge.
Right.
You come back
and hedge.
If you're betting WTA and you are not hedging your bets, you're not betting WTA because you have no money left.
Also, one thing I like doing too is just a quick is instead of, if you want to bet $100, don't bet $100, make 2 $50 bets. So then, like, if the person comes back, wins the second set, you have a cash out option to where you can, let's say if you get 5 or 6 to 1 and they win the second set, you might get 225. You'll get your money back at least, plus some profit. And so the game would be like to try and get, cover both bets. And then if they come back and win, it's a free swing.
Definitely a discussion that will continue on future episodes, live betting versus betting before the matches. But let's get to some picks, things that are already on the board, things we like right here, right now. We'll start with you, Grusk.
There's a lot of good action out there. I've got a couple of things I'm keeping in mind. I'm going to start with just a simple parlay. And I think the parlays are the most fun if you're going to make individual match picks. And I should say I study at the Church of Cale Hammond. And so live bets and game spreads, that is the name of the game. And that's something I'm sure this show will explore throughout its tenure. To me, early on in a tournament, if you think someone's going to win, you ride that money line. Pick them, go with it. And who am I backing here in this event? Jenson Brooksby. Why? Because he beat Novak Djokovic in a set 6-1, and he made it look real. And if you can do that, I think you can beat Roberto Carballes-Baena on a hard court. Now, it's minus 600 something beyond that. That's not the greatest odds, right, individually. So what do? Sneak it on to a narrow favorite. For me, it's Arthur Rinderknecht, who meets two criteria. A, he was an All-American in college. B, he was an All-American in college. That's good enough for me. Of course, he's been exceptional over the past 12 months on the ATP Tour as well, into the top 50 for the first time in his career. You parlay Rinderknecht and Brooksby plus 105. Lock that bad boy in. That's a day one winner.
College tennis on Cracked Rackets. Watch it. I'm curious about the Brooksby pick. It's still very early on in his career. The sample size is small, but his win percentage is incredible. It's top 30, top 20 stuff. What do we deem as the ideal conditions for Jenson Brooksby at this point in the small sample size?
Tennis court.
Not a slow court. Not a slow court. He needs because he hits it flat and he hits it on the rise. He needs that quick surface to do some extra damage on his shots, as well as give him some more free points on the serve. Because I tell you what, out here with his serve, he's not getting any free points.
Even against Carballes-Baena, though?
Oh, I mean, well, he's a minus 600 favorite. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say there. Like, yeah, he should beat Roberto Carballes-Baena. I agree with you. But is he going to beat him by 5.5 games? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows with that? I believe I could be wrong. I believe Brooksby needs a slick surface because his on the rise flat shots do more damage that way.
So he's played Cleveland, Dallas, or Columbus and Dallas, and I think that's it. 2 indoor events. Do you know he's held over 90% of the time this season? Like, his hold percentage is 4.
He didn't hold 90% of the time when I bet the house on him against Nishioka in Columbus.
That's why you're not living in the.
That was a bad day at the Hammond household. Ooh.
Yeah. No, I like it.
Well, the Hammond household was purchased, I take it, on 2021 Jenson Brooksby bets.
Honestly, it absolutely was. I was able to quit my job because I made so much money betting just Brooksby. But then I realized that, unfortunately, when I quit, that the books don't have to take your money if they don't want to. So that was a rude awakening for me when I was limited across many sites and unable to get those wagers down. So now that's why I started the website.
Yeah. All right, CaleHammond.com. We're getting them all in. Best bets for you, Cale, available right now.
Look, I'm just so far on the live, see how it goes train. But if I'm going to pick, I'm not going to take any heavy favorites. I'm going to go with the SoCal kid, Steve Johnson, over Daniel Altmaier. This is practically a pick 'em. We know one thing's for sure. Look, there's going to be a massive 99% American crowd cheering on Steve Johnson. What does Steve Johnson do really well? He hits kick serves and heavy forehands, and that's going to work on these courts. I will say Altmaier does like a slow court as well, so I don't think it's going to be an absolute beatdown, but I do like the crowd to push Stevie J over the edge. Look, at this point, Stevie J with his ranking, he's made a lot of money. He's well off, but he would like to finish strong, and crack that top 60, top 50 one more time. Daniel Altmaier, first round Indian Wells with a 100% American crowd is about as good a draw as you can ask for. So I think Stevie J is going to get this done, and I'm going to be very disappointed if he doesn't.
Just to add to that, Stevie J, 2019 or 2020 Indian Wells Challenger winner. That was the last match before COVID struck, and so he has had success there before. I love that pick, Cale.
Don't blame Steve Johnson for COVID.
Oh, no, you know why? Because it was a Steve Johnson Jack Sock match at Indian Wells, and it was a challenger final. So the gods were like, you know what? COVID.
That's enough. That's it.
Exactly.
Brett, if you don't have, let me know if you have a best bet. If you don't, there's something you said earlier that I think we can build off of.
Go for it.
When you said, look, I like Nadal, I think maybe there's something there. And I'm just wondering, and I know, he's the favorite. So you think, okay, he's the chalk, but everyone else at the top of the men's game feels a little bit down to me. We don't like Medvedev because of the conditions. Zverev, his last 2 losses have been awful performances against Shapovalov and Bublik. We have Tsitsipas with a couple of bad losses since Australia. Felix, the conditions might not be perfect. Everybody seems down. And then here you have Nadal playing some of the best tennis we've seen, looked incredible in Acapulco. Maybe there is value on the favorite there. What do we think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you almost take it for granted. It's like such a given. He's undefeated, and he's the favorite. Now let's talk about the better numbers that are more fun. It's always more fun to talk about bigger odds. But yeah, if you can get 3-1 on Nadal, I mean, I think that's not a bad little value bet. And then maybe what you do is sprinkle a little bit on the guys you think would be his biggest competition, like an Alcaraz or, Ruud or someone like that. So Sinner, like you were saying earlier, all who get ginormous numbers. I mean, Alcaraz 28, Sinner 40, so you'd be happy to let Nadal lose your 3-1 to have a chance to win a 40-1, So yeah, I think so. I think you might as well ride Rafa until he loses or tells you otherwise.
I would like to meet the person who looks at the Bublik 80-1 and is just like, done. Just like, lock it in.
Yeah, all in.
Yeah.
One question for Kale. Kale, since we last spoke or since anything has happened, Yuri Vesely played Novak Djokovic again.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about your history with that matchup?
That's what got me hooked on it, man. I was, I took $20 and turned it into about 900 back in 2016 at Monte Carlo, and then Novak Djokovic went down a set to Yuri Vesely. So I thought, you know what? There's no way Novak Djokovic loses Yuri Vesely here. I'm gonna bet it all on Novak Djokovic. And guess what? Novak Djokovic came back, won the set, gave me the hope, which is what kills you in the end, and fell to Yuri Vesely. And then I tweeted about it. I said, you guys, there's something called irrational confidence. And in sports, it's a very real thing. Irrational confidence is real. And Yuri Vesely has it over Novak Djokovic. And he did it again. Plus 1,800 before the match. Something just absurd. But
Did you bet it?
No, I didn't bet it. I'm trying to do this for a living now. You don't make a living betting over Novak Djokovic. But I guess I'd be better off if I did.
Who's to say? All right, let's take a look at the big board. Producer Mike, could we get that up? There it is. We have Struff plus 177 versus Ivashka from
I
Brett.
can talk about my reason. I didn't get a chance. I'll talk about it real quick.
Go ahead.
Both have been trash. Struff is like 1-7 on the year. Ivashka like 3-4. Ivashka is still coming back from some injuries, but I feel like Struff a little more whippy, a little more top spinny, where Ivashka is just a masher trying to hit it through the court. And if the court's grabbing it like that, I don't know if he's going to have as much success. Maybe Struff can get right. I'd rather have plus 177 there than lay with Ivashka. That's it.
I like it. Cale Hammond bets Steve Johnson over Daniel Altmaier at minus 120. Gruskin's got a lot of picks happening here. Rusevori over... wait, Gruskin, I don't think we got to this. Rusevori you like against Schwartzman, correct?
Yeah, and by the way, I like that it's called Gruskin's Goodies because I definitely had a phase where I was like, my goodies. You guys know the song, come on. And I was like, But you look for Rusevori Schwartzman here. The big thing, I just love this surface for Rusevori because it's Jannik Sinner 0.9. Like, everything you like about Sinner, Rusevori does on court, just not quite as effective. And I think a slower hard court, you look for him, I think he's 30-20 on hard courts over the past 52 weeks. If he has a little bit more time to get to the ball, hitting the ball has never been the issue. Go back and watch that first round match he played in Australia against Felix. That was 5 sets based on the merits, not 5 sets because Felix played poorly. I think Rusevori, this surface, that matchup, I don't know if Schwartzman's got big enough weapons to hurt him with. The other one you throw out there, if Jack Sock doesn't crack a racket against Juan Manuel Cerundolo, then he either lost 0-0 or get retired from the match because Cerundolo is just perfectly built to frustrate him. So you can find that at, Cravata instead of Bovada, but Sock over 0.5 crack rackets for the match.
Rusevori Schwartzman would be a second round match, so Emil will need to go through either a qualifier or a challenger in order to, or excuse me, a qualifier, a lucky loser. He will not have to play any challengers here. And then also we have a parlay from Gruskin. Brooksby is a big favorite. Rinderknech is a slight favorite. And we talked about that at plus 105. Then we also have a producer parlay. Mike, do you want to come in here to talk about your plus 412 prayer?
I just wanted to play along with you gentlemen who speak so well about the sport that we love. But look, it's pretty obvious Haddad Maya is not, super fun television, but Sophia Kenin just can't get anything straight. And I don't know if this is the tournament for her to make it happen. And Haddad Maya has actually been playing pretty well.
She's looked great, honestly. Yeah. Lefty serve, lefty forehand. When was Kenin's last match even?
She played in Australia and lost in the first round. So
she's warmed up. She's ready to
go. She better warm up more, because last we saw her, she had a spare tire going. Marcos Giron over Musetti. Look, I'm not a Musetti fan at all. And Kale, I think you agree with me. And I think Giron, I just like that number. And then you combine it with Nakashima over Manarino. Manarino has not had a lot of success in the desert. Hasn't won a match there in, I think, 4 years. And Beanock, we like him. Manarino did just beat him in Del Rey last month, but completely different conditions, and it was a close match. I like this. At plus 412, I put $10 on it. Why not?
It's a good revenge angle for Adrian Manarino, and hopefully he plays on Friday or Saturday, because then he'll lose for sure, and you'll see him later that night at the Nest.
Kale, are you betting the house? I feel like all of it on that Nakashima, whatever the game spread is.
No, Nakashima's been sketchy this year. Mm-hmm. I don't want any part of that. I'm gonna wait and see approach for him. He won everyone a lot of money last year, but he has lost some people a decent amount of money this year.
Okay, interesting. If you and Brett, I'm curious, give me, I know it's basic level, if you're gonna take one futures on the women's side, any of them, or is it just a complete stay away?
Definitely worth a dart throw. I just don't have them in front of me right now, but I'll always take a dog.
We'll get there. A dog it
Sam
is.
Sinova.
They're all dogs. Let's be real.
They're all dogs.
They are all dogs. I am Gil Gross. Alex Gruskin, Cracked Rackets. Brett Connors, Advantage Connors Pod. Cale Hammond, CaleHammondBets.com. Thank you to our producer, Mike Haston. And thank you for watching. Hopefully, we hit some winners.